an ag tech company, and then got into real estate really on accident. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I thought it would be cool to own an office building. And
what is up, my friends? What is up, my friends? We're out here in Dallas, Texas, getting ready for Squad Up Summit. We have had a great day. Got my man Jordan Reyes here with us. Looking forward to having a really great conversation. We've got to chat previously a little bit online, so I know we're going to be able to really add some value to people here, man. So I guess first off, for those that didn't catch our previous chat, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself, your background, and everything, what brought you to real estate first?
yeah, man, I appreciate it. It's always great to be live and in person. So
Yeah,
it brings a new dynamic to the conversation. But so yeah, my background has been a little bit. I've done a little bit of everything. So coming out of college, I worked for Frito-Lay for a couple years. Started a well drilling company in the Central Valley in California. I farmed almonds. Started an ag tech company, and then got into real estate really on accident. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I thought it would be cool to own an office building and maybe house our ag tech company there and maybe rent some space out. But I didn't know anything about real estate.
Yeah.
And so I talked to a buddy of mine and who had flipped a bunch, and he said, "Hey, why don't we partner on new construction and development?" And I said, "That sounds cool. I don't know anything different, so why not?" You tell people in real estate like, "Oh, you just started in new development," and they're like, "That's crazy." But I didn't know anything. I didn't know any better. And so me being naive and just jumping into it, we had a ton of fun, a lot of projects, single family, some multifamily stuff, and then got into creative and larger deals. But that's how I got started in real estate.
You call it naive, but there's something to be said about just having enough belief in yourself to take action. And that's one of the themes of, I think, everybody we've spoken to, is that, like, if you really want to have success, you just got to be willing to risk it sometimes. You got to take the actions, right? So, you mentioned that you started a company there. So I actually want to ask this question a little bit earlier than I planned since you brought it up. But so you started a drilling company, and then farming, different type of business. Tell us a little bit first off about like what drove you to start your own business versus like, hey, I just want to go get a job on a rig or something, and then like how did that move into farming for you?
Yeah, so I always knew that I wanted to do something else. I graduated and started working at Frito-Lay, and the first thing I did was try to figure out, well, what's the next thing that I can do for myself. I don't like answering to people. I like doing my own thing. I want to have that freedom.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't talk about, though, is you do have the freedom, but you also have the responsibility of now, you're on your own.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you might think that people are working 40 hours or even 20 hours and doing their own thing, but being an entrepreneur and having your own business, you're always on, right? And so that's part of it. But I enjoy that.
Yeah.
Right? I still enjoy being able to, hey, it's 8:00 and you can take your kids to school, but then you get back on the grind. Maybe you start earlier. You start at 5, 6 a.m., take a little break, and you still have that flexibility, but there is still a lot of times. There's still a lot of late nights. There's still a lot of times that are missed when you are grinding. But I always wanted to do something for myself.
Yeah.
I did not want to be building somebody else's dream.
Got it. So, man, I mean, spot on. Me too. I was running the gym in my early 20s and like just knew that like I needed to be doing something for myself. And some of my friends and my peers in the gym were like, oh, you just need to work for yourself, And I remember thinking like, yeah, I don't want to have a boss, right? And so I left the gym and started doing the entrepreneurship myself on the digital space. And you just made an incredible point that people don't talk about enough, is that people think that working for yourself or being an entrepreneur means, oh, I get a lighter load. I don't have anybody telling me what to do. But the truth is you get a heavier load first and foremost, but you have to tell yourself what to do. And most people are not prepared, and even myself included, when I first jumped into entrepreneurship, it's like, you don't really know what you don't know. So in a corporate structure, they tell you what you need to do to accomplish your goals. when you start your own company, you're out there, now you're by yourself at the board table, looking in the mirror, talking to yourself. Like, you got to set the initiatives. You got to make the right decisions. You got to go do the hard work. And people overlook that. It's not all, it's actually, it's not only is it not all like sunshine and rainbows, it's almost never sunshine and rainbows and fun stuff. It's like always hard, shitty, dirty work that you have to be prepared for. And people, especially nowadays with social media, make entrepreneurship seem so pretty. And I'm sure you can relate to the fact that it's not pretty. Like, it's gritty.
No, not at all. I mean, there are certainly great aspects of it. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't turn off at 5 o'clock, right? You don't get to go home and clock out. There's a lot of sleepless nights. There's a lot of worry. I mean, you still have problems. It's just your problems get bigger, right? When you're in a job, you don't necessarily need to worry about, where the next paycheck is coming from.
Right.
Although that did change a little bit with COVID. But you kind of have a little bit of a steady thing.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, even as you're growing, as you're doing bigger deals, as you're doing bigger things, you still have that doubt, that worry that, it's 2 or 3 in the morning and, I forgot to follow up with a huge contract or something like that.
Right.
There's always a worry and
You're
a
like,
concern. Yeah. So it's not like it just turns off at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I think that with that comes a level of stress, that most folks aren't accustomed to.
Yeah. Now, I can say, based off my own experience, I would assume it applies to you too, but having that entrepreneurial experience prior to getting into real estate really gives you a leg up, right? Because part of the reason why we are doing what we do with Dealmakers Academy is because most people want to leave their W-2, or they're still there, or they just left, or whatever, but they have no idea how to build a business, right? They might pay somebody like Pace or some other mentor or guru for like the knowledge, but they don't know how to actually build the business around the knowledge, right? And so, kind of contrary to that, I came into this space knowing how to build a business and needing to learn the product knowledge of real estate in order to do it, which is why we've been able to pick up faster. I'm sure same thing for you. I know you've had success. I'm sure that plays into having had that entrepreneurial background. So how did that help you learn the way maybe faster, or did it even? Maybe it's not the case, but like, did that help you figure out how to like build your real estate business and what you're doing now?
I think that what it boils down to is just like in school, people go to school to get a degree. I went to school and I played basketball in college, and so it really wasn't about the school. I learned more from dealing with people, and being on a team and that type of thing than I ever did in the actual classroom. And so I would say that while the businesses may be different, that there's certain challenges in life and in entrepreneurship that kind of set you up. And that's really where dealing with the stress, dealing with the tough times, dealing with the fact that, hey, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I believe in myself enough to go and do the thing. That's probably the biggest attribute that I learned from previous businesses or entrepreneurship. Like I said, I've said this before, is like, I've been broke. So going back to that, I'm okay, at the end of the day. So I know what that is, and I know how I can get myself out of that. And so that gives you the confidence to go and do the next thing and take on that next challenge when others may not.
For sure. And so another question that you touched on a second ago was the farming thing. I want to circle back to this because I'm curious. It's obviously a different business than what you were in previously. And so what drew you to change? Because I know a lot of times, like, there's two different trains of thought when it comes to entrepreneurship. Like, find what you love and do what you love to the fullest extent. And the other thing is like, find what the fuck you can do the best and make a bunch of money at and do that, whether you love it or not. And there's a balance there. So do you love farming? Like, is that what drew you there? Was it more of your passion?
I do. And I certainly, so we got out of farming, or I did, a few years ago, and I certainly am looking at avenues to get back. That is probably one of the things that I'm a little bit more passionate about in the sense of business. Can you make money there? Maybe. I didn't figure out how to do that, but I do have a lot of friends that are in the space and that have made money. It is a very stressful lifestyle. I don't know if most folks don't know that farmers actually have like one of the highest rates of suicide So,
I
but
did not know that.
there is something to be said about being outside, and that's also why I like real estate. Being outside, not in an office, not in
Yeah.
a cubicle, touching the thing.
Yeah.
So I do like it, and I certainly am always looking for ways to get back. I know we were looking at a property on Flathead Lake that had some cherries on it. I got one of my best friends is a cherry, peach, apple farmer in Washington, and so we're always looking at ways to
Cool.
expand.
So I kind of assumed, I guess, that there had to be some kind of passion there because it doesn't sound like the kind of business you're like, hey, like, I'm going to go hit it big and try to get rich.
I did think that's what I was going to do with an ag tech company.
Okay.
So
Tell us about this one then.
Yeah, so so when we were in the ag tech space, we were building automation and think of like a smart home out on a farms and ranches.
Oh, cool.
So we were doing automated irrigation. We were doing some indoor farming stuff, some fertigation systems, some frost monitors, and that was fun. And I thought that we were going to make a ton of money doing that. But that didn't play out. It was some challenging times and a lot of lessons I did learn from that about networking and people and leveraging your network and kind of, I guess, the secrets of money. Looking at that, I thought you had to have all the money and do everything yourself, and that's how you built the empire.
Yeah. I am of the belief that as an entrepreneur, somebody who really desires to be an entrepreneur, not somebody who like, oh, I quit my job and I just whatever, but like somebody who's like, I want to build something. You kind of have to fail once, minimum. And once is a light number. Sometimes it's 2, 3. I got 3 that you, depending on how you look at it, could call a failure. When you learn how to frame it, you realize you're buying lessons, like you said. You're buying an education that I didn't want to go to college and sit in a classroom for years. They wouldn't have been able to teach me what I learned through spending the money and then not having that money anymore.
Right.
And so like there's a lot of value, and I think it's super needed. So it's interesting that you kind of say that. I thought that I was going to do this because I can think of clearly 2 specific businesses that I just knew were going to be the thing that got me there, and it didn't. It didn't. It did for a short time. It looked like it was going to, and then it went down, right? And then it's like, oh, well, what are the lessons that I have to learn? And the reason why I asked, or part of the reason why I asked about the farming thing is because I moved into the cannabis industry at one point in time. Wasn't farming anything, right? But I'm really good at sales and marketing, really good with the branding stuff. So we did that. And I learned some principles of business that you wouldn't know that you were learning in the cannabis industry that I could imagine apply to this. And that's like sourcing quality product and repackaging it and being able to sell it at a higher price. And as I advanced into real estate, I realized, well, holy shit, I'm really good at this real estate thing because all I've ever done is source high quality product, repackage it and slap my brand on it, and then sell it to somebody else at a higher number. I'm like, well, damn, that's all that wholesaling is, right? It's just like, I thought I was doing something else. I thought this was going to be the thing that's going to get us rich. We're going to be the famous cannabis guys. I'm going to be Snoop Dogg and all this shit, right? And that didn't happen. But the skills that I learned in what looked like a failure or felt like not a win at the time now applies today, and we're able to build and scale things because of the same principles. So that's the true reason why I love entrepreneurship, because you're just always learning.
Yeah.
It feels like failure, but you're just failing forward and you're learning something new.
Yeah, so there is definitely some big companies in the ag tech space, right? And they were around when I started, and we weren't different at that stage. But fast forward 3, 4, 5 years, and they're massive, and we failed, right? So I always looked at that and go, what did they do that I didn't? What did they know that I didn't? And it could have been they raised a bunch of capital, right?
Yeah.
So they leveraged other people's money.
Yeah.
They leverage other people's products. I thought, hey, we have to go build all of the software, all of the tech, all of the hardware ourselves to really, take advantage of this. That's not the case at all.
Yeah.
But I didn't know any different.
Right.
So I just said, okay, well, let's go find, the little microchips, right? So we spend a year trying to develop a hardware product. Then we spent a year trying to do the software. Meanwhile, they were leveraging other products and branding, sales, marketing, and they flew right past us.
Yep. And you know what? I love that you made that point, because that's actually what I was going to say, is that there's 2 types of entrepreneurs, and I have my partner, Zach, who is more of the product entrepreneur, right? The guy who wants to make everything just polished and perfect, and he'll spend so much time making it perfect. And then you got myself, who's like, well, let's go tell them how good it is. And then when they start spending money, we'll get it better, right? And there's like disconnect, and often it takes a partnership between 2 guys like that to really have effective, because early in my career, and to the point that I made a second ago, I would go sell and market and do great things. But when it came to the fulfillment and the product side, I was not ahead of that. I'm outsourcing somebody else that's not a partner in my business. They don't care near as much as I do, and that falls apart. And so I learned the importance of developing, the focus on product, but there's also a lot to be said, like you just said, when you just know how to sell and market and brand something, you'll fly past the guys that are better at the thing than you are. So like learning that balance in entrepreneurship was hard for me, and I'm sure it's hard for others, especially if you're good at leveraging digital marketing, because like it's hard to verify. Like I can go tell you I'm great at anything in the world, and if I paint my social media to look that way, you'll believe it. And so it's harder nowadays, but like there's just a lot to be said about that, because like product is important. It's what keeps you around long term, but what gets you off the ground is sales and marketing.
Yeah.
So like you have to have that in order to lift up fully. You have to have sales and marketing heavy, but followed by a product that can actually deliver what you're saying. And that's the key point that you kind of talked about. Like, what were they doing that I wasn't? It's probably just marketing.
Yeah.
I would assume they probably don't have a better product than you. Just simply, they marketed. They told more people who they were, and they made money because of it. So those principles, though, apply the same thing to real estate. Same thing now that we do. We teach other people how to generate like movement, create brand through social media and like content. So I love that. So then you did I love also you mentioned that you got into the new construction off the jump. Like you said, oh, people like, that's crazy. That's literally crazy. Like that sounds so, like having learned real estate from 0 to 1, it's like how the hell you could jump straight to there sounds very hard. So I do know after hearing your story that, that entrepreneurial background helps you learn how to learn. So it's like easier to pick up something new. So, but it was a pretty big thing. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So, but the other big thing is it allows you to be able to have that confidence, like I said earlier, to say yes to things that you don't know what the outcome is.
Yes.
Right. You say yes to the experience and know that, you talked about failure earlier, you reframe your mind, right? It's not a failure anymore. It's a lesson. If it doesn't work out, you're going to learn something from it.
Yep.
Right. So having, again, that confidence to go, yeah, let's go do this thing.
Yeah.
And, what's the worst that can happen, So we started doing new construction in California. Probably did, 40 single family and some multifamily stuff, projects kind of throughout. And we did everything from, I've spent a lot of time at city council meetings, rezoning, permitting, text amendments, like all the development stuff that I just thought everybody knew, and that's just what you did.
Yeah.
But now you talk to a lot of real estate investors, and they've wholesaled, and they've fix and flipped, and they've done some buy and holds, and now they're looking at new construction, and then they're getting into like, oh, that's a whole new set of due diligence that I didn't even know about.
Yeah.
So it's just funny to see me just saying yes to that experience or that option, if you will, and that becomes the new norm, right? So like, again, when you graduate into things, you're just getting into bigger problems.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I love it. Absolutely. And now, of course, I know you're in the RV parks now. I know that's your focus now, and I can see how that could play into a huge asset, like a huge resource in what you're doing now, like knowing the development side. And so whereas somebody like myself might start with wholesaling, right? And then if I want to move into RV parks, there's a huge learning curve for me there because I started at this point and I want to move over here. But you started at a point that was much closer to now what you really are having success with. So I know you partnered with Pace, being at Squad Up, try to shout out Pace on everything here. So you partnered with Pace on one of them, and that's what got you into, you brought the deal to Pace, correct? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so actually a couple of stories as far as like partnering with Pace is one, and then actually our newest RV park is tied into the development side and due diligence, so we can talk about that too. But the way I got into RV parks is we started to try and figure out multifamily. That was like the next best thing. Yeah. I was not done, because we are still doing new construction, but I wanted to build a legacy, and building to sell is just cash, right? It's just money. And there's no like long-term gains. It's quick, right? So I wanted to move into the space of being able to buy and hold. Yes. And so I thought multifamily, more doors, higher price points, but you're just adding a zero instead of 100,000, it's $1 million, right? You just add a zero to it.
Right.
And so I joined a couple of mentorships, and everything was a 3-4 cap, and I could not figure out how to make things work. Could not figure it out. Okay, well, if I'm going to go raise money, or if now I have to go to a bank.
Yeah.
Seems like a lot of work, and I don't know that they're really cash flowing, because you were at that time you were competing with a lot of cash in the market and almost free money. So I found an RV park on market and made that relationship, because I thought RV parks got to be the same as multifamily. I mean, it's the same thing, right? Multiple spaces, multiple units, got to be the same. Again, not knowing what I don't know, but just doing the thing, right?
Yep, I love that.
So that's what I tell people is just go do it. Like, just go try it, and just go do the thing. If you fail, it'll be a learning lesson on what to do better the next time. So anyway, I call this broker. Again, we get hit with, well, we just sold one in the area at a 4 cap. And I'm like, well, I don't know RV parks, but I figured that they would be better than a multifamily. Why wouldn't somebody just go buy a multifamily? Yeah. So that deal is essentially dead at that point. Yeah. 3 months later, that broker calls me back, because it was right about the time that things were turning in the market. Hey, are you still interested in the park? No, I'm not. Sorry. That ship has sailed. Yeah. And he goes, well, we really haven't had much traction on it. I will tell you that we do have another park that this owner owns, and it's just down the street. And I said, okay, maybe we can talk, right? Maybe there is something there. And so then probably about another 3 months goes by of us going back and forth and negotiating the deal, and this is what would work, and this is what would not work. Eventually we got to a spot where we negotiated a seller finance deal. Nice. And I mean, we're at Squat Up Summit. I was not in sub 2. Yeah. I kind of knew the creative thing, but I didn't know pace. Right. At that point. And so it was all somewhat new to me. It's, I'd watched some YouTube videos on like creative finance as far as like seller finance and seller carry, but that was probably the extent of it. And so I negotiated a seller finance deal with the seller. I think it was $500,000. 6.5 was the acquisition price for both parks, and 5% or 4.5% interest. And so I negotiated that deal. Finally, and this is the other thing that people don't realize even with on market, is that brokers aren't necessarily like the gods of the world and know everything, right? Because the broker for 2 out of those 3 months told me that there was no way seller finance would work. No way. Somehow I got on the phone with the seller, if it was a group call or what, I don't remember. But we got on together, and I said, why, what are you trying to accomplish with this? And he said, well, I want to sell it, but I need to make enough money to offset my tax bill. And I said, well, why don't you seller finance? And he was like, I would love to seller finance. And the broker is just silent on the phone, because I'm like, we could have been at this point 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So that's how we negotiated the seller finance, is just by getting direct contact. And again, at this point, I don't know pace. I don't know. I'm not in sub 2 or anything. And so I'm actually get that contract signed in the car, and as I'm pulling up to a meetup, because this was in Bozeman, in Montana. And so we get it signed, and $6.5 million. I don't have 6. Right. I don't have the $500,000 that we need. So I'm like, I don't know what we're gonna do at this point. But again, I'm just going to do the thing. Yeah. And I figure somebody will figure it out. Somebody will figure it out somehow. And so again, that comes with a whole nother level of stress, and I'm like really worried about it, because I don't want to let the seller down and all of these things. And so I go, you know what? I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to go hang out, go to this meetup, kind of introduce myself to people and just network. So we get probably about a couple hours into this meetup, and Pace had actually traveled in his Airstream up to Bozeman, but was staying this was during the summertime in Montana, and if anybody's been to Montana in the summertime, you can't find anywhere to stay. So he was like 45 minutes away, and he said, I was just telling so-and-so that we should buy an RV park, or we should build one here, because there's nowhere to stay. So me, again, being a little naive, just raised my hand and said, hey, I have 2 RV parks up north under contract right now. And he said, I'll buy those with you. So that was, a Thursday. So I drive back home. Friday, I joined Sub 2. Saturday, I'm hanging out with Pace, and we're driving the RV parks. And then we closed on those RV parks a couple months later.
Dude, literally, that's such a cool story.
Yeah.
That's because he's just out there. You don't even know who he is. And just the perfect alignment and timing of it to be able to connect for you is so cool. And it's just a very Pace thing to be like, I'll buy those with you. Why not? I mean,
yeah.
I like RV parks and money, so let's do it.
Yeah.
So, but you've carried that further. You've kept on with the RV stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, and then we just closed on another one a couple of weeks ago, and kind of looping that back into my new construction background, and just thinking that's the norm is I really dive deep into due diligence and where are we at with permits and zoning and all of the things. So much to the extent that we renegotiated, I think 3 or 4 times on this last deal. And one of the conversations that the broker had, again, an on-market deal, the broker called me after we got off a group call again with the sellers and said, this broker specializes in RV parks. And she said, I've been doing this for, 15, 20 years. I have never met anybody that is more diligent in their due diligence than you.
Well, that's a compliment.
And I was like,
there we go.
I just think that's the norm. Yeah. I was like, well, what are other people looking at when they're buying these things, So, but that comes from what I've done before and the development background. But now today we are continuing to do RV parks, outdoor hospitality. So on our newest park, we are actually selling individual spots. So if anybody wants a spot, you got to call me.
There you go. I saw your post about that actually.
Yeah. So we've just revamped the systems, booking systems, the website, all of it has gone digital.
There we go.
Before it was a pen and paper and somebody called a phone, and very old school. But yeah, so in this one we are selling individual spots. We have a phase 2, and then hopefully we're trying to get phase 3 approved, which would be some tree houses, some elevated platforms, and some more luxury brand-ish.
Yeah. Me, you, and Tara talked about several different deals at different times. She her and Bain actually both have a focus on some of the outdoor hospitality stuff, and we're working on some properties in New York, Catskill, that's like kind of a unique property like that. But one thing I know about you after talking several times is you are a negotiator. You're a people person. You're able to talk. I know you would consider yourself a closer avatar, which is really a lot of what deal making is, like being able to negotiate win-win deals and be able to find a solution that not only wins for you but wins for the seller. You talked about the seller was like, I don't want to pay my tax bill. Okay, well, great. Here's how I help solve that problem for you, and in turn, you get the solution. And I think that's really what being a deal maker is all about. So I train people how to generate leads. If they bring in RV park leads, how do they bring them to you? How do they collaborate with you to do more deals that way?
Yeah, I would say the easiest way is just reaching out on Instagram at _Jordan_Reyes. I have a lot of people that reach out and try and structure deals, and we just structure deals very easily just in a couple of messages, It's all about finding the solution to people's problems, like you said. And that's how you make deals. That's how you make a win-win for everybody that's involved. Yeah. Those are the best kind of deals, to be honest with you. Like the seller on this previous park, it's like we were almost adversarial at the beginning, right? It was like him versus us.
Yeah.
Now we've become friends, and friends become lenders, and lenders become mentors. It's this cool cycle of things. When you're transparent, but still trying to solve problems for everybody involved. Win-wins.
Well, dude, that's what our literal motto at Dealmakers is: win-win or no deal. Right? Like I wouldn't want to put myself in a deal where I was losing, and I also wouldn't feel good about a deal where the other person walked away, felt like they were losing, because they're going to go tell everybody else how I just took advantage of them and they lost, and I don't want that negative energy out there. So all about win-win or no deal. So one other question I have for you, since we touch on collaboration, is if, let's say, as deal makers, I want to go generate some RV park leads. Where do you see people find these opportunities? And you mentioned a couple of times being on market. So is that where you're finding like this the best opportunities?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best opportunities, but there is, I would say probably in the RV park world, I think that there's more opportunities that versus any other kind of asset class. Multifamily is tough on market. Self-storage can be tough. Single family can be tough. I think that there's still more opportunity in RV parks because of the lack of systems and record keeping, and there's not as much focus on that space, and so it's a lot of mom and pop. And so again, once you break down that barrier of talking with the broker and relationships and getting to know sellers, it's easier to make a deal. So that's probably the easiest way within asset classes with RV parks is to get to the seller, right? Because that's tough when you're dealing with a hedge fund or private equity and multifamily or self-storage, but a lot of that does not exist in the RV park world. So it's easier to have that conversation with the ultimate decision maker. And then with on-market stuff, what has generated a lot of leads for us is the on-market stuff, but not the on-market deal. Meaning now, for example, that broker that told me that I was very diligent in my due diligence brings us stuff off market. She's the go-to, like she's out there, or he, whoever it is out there finding the deals and saying like, hey, I can sell your RV park for you. And then bringing them to us and going, hey, I know you guys can close. I know you guys operate. I know that you look at all of these things. Here's a deal for you. They don't want to take it to the market. Or I know that we're not going to be able to get what they want on that market level, but I know that we can structure something you can operate it. So those relationships do take time, but they are very, very much worth that time.
I would say so. I mean, that makes a ton of sense as to how you're able to do that. Is there specific markets that you're looking at these in? I know obviously you're in Montana. But...
so I love Montana. So Montana, northern Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, Tennessee, and the Carolinas.
Tennessee and the Carolinas is some of our focus markets as well, so I'm sure we can stumble into some leads out there. I actually spent some time in northern Idaho in February. We went to Priest Lake. And literally, we're driving in like just miles and miles and miles of RV parks, and I'm like literally telling my girlfriend Lauren, I'm like this is just money, right? It's so funny, like when you're young or like you hear about like the trailer park and you have this conception of like, oh, what this is, and then you get into real estate, you understand like, well, that is that's a bankroll right there.
It's a gold mine.
They are literally sitting on a gold mine, and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. This shift in perspective of what this really means, you know, and that's really cool, dude. So one more time, if you tell where people can send opportunities, your Instagram name, you said?
Yeah, Instagram at @the_Jordan_Reyes.
Awesome. Well, Jordan, I appreciate you coming out and spending some time with us, man. I know it's Squad Up, so it's a busy weekend for everybody, lots of things going on, but I appreciate you coming to spit some game on RV parks and entrepreneurial stuff. That's the thing that I love to talk about the most, so I definitely enjoy it. So any last words, anything you want to tie up with before we slide out here?
I would say I appreciate you having me, and if you guys are finding deals, let's make money together.
There you go.
Let's do this win-win.
That's what it's all about. That's what we're squadding up, right? That's why we're here. That's it.
That's right.
Awesome. Jordan, I appreciate you coming through, man.
Thank you.